I'm sure you're familiar with Stephen Hawking, a very famous physicist. Well, he's issued a warning. Humans only have about 100 years left on this Earth. Then they've got to colonize another planet. He says our planet, the Earth, is doomed. Our next guest says he's got it all wrong. Here's the quote from our guest. Here it is. "Look, for the adventure, I'd go to Mars this minute. But for refuge, no thanks, Stephen. I'm not giving up on Earth. I plan to stick around, hoping to leave it a better place than I found it." Here he is, Michael Guillen, scientist and author of the upcoming book, The Null Prophecy. Where is Hawking so totally wrong that the Earth is doomed within 100 years?
Well, listen, good morning, Stuart. The man is entitled to his opinion, and we're entitled not to take him seriously. The problem is that Stephen Hawking is using his scientific credentials to make statements that are not at all scientific. He knows, I know, that science is a lot of things, but it does not have the power to look into the distant future and predict a specific outcome. And he, of all people, should know this because when he was 21 years old, doctors diagnosed him with Lou Gehrig's disease, and then when they looked into all the latest medical science, they said, you know what, you're not going to survive beyond 25, and now he's over 70 years old. So, yeah, he can keep making these sensational prognostications, but if he does, I recommend that he should leave the University of Cambridge and join the psychic hotline, or better yet, Hogwarts, where he can become the professor of clairvoyance with a little peaked hat.
Now, he's basing his gloom and doom forecast essentially on climate change. That's what it's all about.
Not just that. Not just that. That's that overpopulation. He's worried about these near-Earth objects that come perilously close to impacting the Earth. He's talking about drug-resistant diseases. There's a whole laundry list, and believe me, yeah, I mean, I'm on board. We have a lot of problems, but again, where I fault him is to make this very specific prediction that 100 years from now, the clock is ticking, especially since last November he said with near certainty, those were his words, that we had 1,000 years. So what changed?
Well, it just brings discredit on the whole idea of scientific prognosis, looking into the future. That's what it does.
Exactly.
It discredits that whole looking into the future. Well, look, we've got some, we've found, some scientists have found an unexpected source of what some are calling climate cooling. I want to know what you think about this. This is Arctic waters absorbing vast amounts of carbon dioxide, and that creates, they say, a cooling effect many times larger than the warming emitted by methane gas. Now, to many of us, that's gobbledygook. Can you put this into perspective, please?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a report that was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences last week. The lead author is a guy from the USGS, Geological Survey, very credentialed, worked with some people in Norway and in Germany. But here was the gist. We hear a lot about climate change. It's a subject that has become very, very politicized, so it's very difficult to tease out what's true and what's not. But here's the thing, Stuart, about this is very exciting. And that is, people hear about carbon dioxide being the bad guy, that more carbon dioxide gets into the atmosphere, the hotter it is. And indeed, carbon dioxide is what we call a greenhouse gas. It causes the Earth to warm up. But even worse than that, by about 30 times worse than that, is methane. Methane is about, molecule for molecule, 30 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. So we have worried a lot about places in the ocean all over the Earth where we see methane welling up from the surface of the oceans. And so these scientists went to the Arctic, just off the coast of some Norwegian islands, expecting to measure how terrible this was, that this methane was coming up from the surface, from the bottom of the Arctic Ocean there, getting into the atmosphere and causing warming. Well, what did they find? But that for reasons that we don't know yet, and this is what makes this story so very interesting, is that, yes, they did find some methane, as they expected, coming up, but they found that carbon dioxide was being sucked in at an enormous rate. In other words, carbon dioxide was being removed And the net effect was that the cooling resulting from the removal of the carbon dioxide at these locations is 200 times more cooling due to the removal of the carbon dioxide than the heating that was being caused by the methane. So this turns the narrative completely upside down.
Michael, I've got to leave you, but I've not heard about global cooling since it was either Time magazine or Newsweek put it on the front cover back in the 1970s. I do remember that. Michael Guillen, author of the book The Null Prophecy. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you being with us. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Stuart. Always a pleasure.